It's a Friday.
Good morning.
Finally.
It is a Friday. It's only the third Friday of the 9 Fridays of January.
Bado kuna zingine.
Kuna zingine kaa 7.
Yeah. But then we're going to make this one memorable for them. Oh yes, we have to. We have to. First of all, the very important conversation that has been continuing this entire week.
Oh yes.
The whole femicide cases. We're going to be talking about that.
Oh yes, and we'll have a panel of women to discuss this. But we need to welcome them. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe right here on TV 47. My name is Freddie Ndemuli. How hot is a coffee where you are? It is a Friday, the 3rd of the 9 Fridays of January. Yeah.
Oh yes, and I'm truly Stanley Nyaringita. Karibu sana right here at Morning Cafe, and right to the whole tail end of this particular show. Talk about giving you some music, all genres, really, and then getting into a weekend queue. Bansi Kiboyu.
I tell you, weekend imefika.
Talking about what has been trending this entire week, really, you really don't want to miss that. But then let's start with some traffic right about now, taking a look at which kind of roads you should be avoiding. But again, it's as early as 6 a.m., so no roads right about now that are really should be disturbing you. There's a red spot right here. Just to know which particular road this is. Well, if you're actually heading to Muthurwa, it's bumper to bumper right about now. Probably should be getting to know.
Landis Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Section of that. Probably an accident, maybe.
Not really. There's a whole lot of activity that usually happens around this place. So yes, it could be one of so many different things happening around Kamukunji. There are a lot of traveling happening, and yes, it's usually a bit slow. A lot of mkokotenis as well on that.
Oh yes, yes. And the whole even rush hour to get into the CBD with many people this particular hour. But apart from that, I can't see any other roads that are will have a whole problem. This is a smaller one here. Let's see which road this is. I think getting into Haile Selassie, the particular
Afia Center.
Oh yes.
Matatus are dropping people in town.
Oh yes.
So not really much traffic to talk about. Probably look at Thika Road getting into town.
Oh yes, I had taken a look at Thika Road earlier on. It was clear, and mostly the biggest problem is just getting into Utalii. And just also before Muthaiga, a particular roundabout as well. And as you can see, this is before you actually hit Pangani. There it is, all clear. Let's take a look at also the weather real quick. 18 degrees Celsius, but then chances of it raining is quite high.
Okay.
Probability again. Let's take a look at the dailies.
Let's take a look at the headlines this morning. Which paper do we have? Yes, the Standard: attack questions as TSC withdraws 17 school teachers. That's a headline on the Standard. What do we have on the Nation? The Nation: IMF's bid appeal for taxpayers. Interesting.
Next up, the Star: exposed the big ethnic disparity in government jobs. We'll be diving into that later. Into Taifa Leo: ushuru zaidi waja. Wow.
Not the kind of news that Kenyans want on a Friday.
So yes.
On the People Daily, why Gachagua chickened out of judge petition. Interesting. All right. Those are the dailies this morning. We'll be looking at them much later on. But for now, let's take a look at the highlights today.
Women leaders to issue joint statement to the media today on rising cases of intimate partner violence following spate of killings.
President William Ruto joins other regional and world leaders attending the Non-Aligned Movement Summit taking place in Uganda.
And in matters sports, Egypt lucky to salvage a draw against Ghana at the ongoing AFCON tournament as Nigeria beat hosts Ivory Coast. Right, and even on today's news diary, just a brief, first off, tomorrow is the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga anniversary. Will be happening in Nairobi, and ODM leader Raila Odinga will be presiding over this particular ceremony. So preparations for this event are underway for the same. Also, our top highlight this particular morning, women leaders to be issuing a press statement on the rising femicide cases as well. And
hold it there. I want to take you back to that Jaramogi highlight. I'm wondering.
I feel like I have a feeling where this is going.
Because this is like 30 years ago when Jaramogi Oginga Odinga died. Do you even know? Do you have any idea what it looked like? Do you have any memory, or what do you know about Jaramogi?
That's a whole history class.
What would you say you know about Jaramogi Oginga Odinga? Even one thing. Okay, understandably.
Well, apart from the fact that he is the father to
yes.
Raila Odinga, he led. He opposed the government of Moi back then.
Okay.
Yes.
A good student.
Yes.
He's also the founder of the Forum for Restoration of Democracy Party, which is now called FORD, which later split to Ford Asili, Ford Kenya, Ford People. And yes, it's one of the fathers of democracy.
Oh yes. There's so much here. I was just trying to see which one am I filtering.
I do understand. A lot of Gen Zs don't understand who Jaramogi Oginga Odinga is. They only know Raila Odinga.
Yes. Anyway. Good thing though will be getting to know him deeply.
Okay.
From the people who actually knew him.
Okay.
As of tomorrow. Yes.
Fair enough.
President William Ruto is also in Uganda. He jetted into that country yesterday, and we did see that particular IGAD event, as well as the whole NAM summit. That is the Non-Aligned Summit. Began on Monday, and I think concludes tomorrow on the 20th. And we'll be getting to know all that. This particular event also brings forth the chance for Kenya to have, strengthen its diplomatic ties. So he'll be, having bilateral meetings with the various heads of state. You can see on the screen right about now. That is on the news diary as concerned this particular morning. More details to be coming in, subsequent bulletins. But right now, tuingie magazetini.
All right. Today we start off with the Daily Nation because I think this will be of interest to a lot of Kenyans. That bumper.
Oh, yes.
Let's take a look at the Daily Nation on the front page. IMF's a bitter pill for taxpayers. Revenue performance has remained low despite the enhanced tax measures. This is a big story on the front page of the Daily Nation, and it has an image, a very big one also. I don't know what they're trying to say with this, just the size of the image. International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. And they say no respite. Kenyans are set for another season of more tax pain. As the government starts implementing International Monetary Fund-backed revenue measures that are expected to yield an additional 806 billion shillings over the next 3 years. Now, this comes at a time of elevated inflation and subdued economic activity, which have made it hard for the Kenya Kwanza administration to bring in new taxes and levies without opposition. The main story is on page 7, and I think every Kenyan taxpayer should go and read it just to know what to expect in the coming year. The other story given prominence on the front page, why Ruto Raila feuds threaten Bomas report. Remember that report that we talked about quite a lot towards the end of last year. It was supposed to be presented in Parliament, but seeing the kinds of division between Raila Odinga and President Ruto right now, doubts are being raised about the future or the fate of that report. Yes, the Grand Mullah makes it to the front page of the Daily Nation today.
Oh, yes.
This is
so apparently he's making it to the front page, but not going to be making it to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I saw someone say that he's only allowed to get to that roundabout next to City Hall. and then goes back to pronto.
Wow. So even being close to that little boy holding the fish.
I tell you, yes, you can only take a picture there. Yes. Outrage as Supreme Court blacklists top lawyer over attacks. Apex Court announces an indefinite ban on Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi and his law firm or any person acting on his instructions from appearing before it. So many questions have been asked on how legal that kind of pronouncement is. Yes. And that debate will definitely continue. Other stories on the front page of the Daily Nation: release full free learning cash, secondary principals demand. The Kenya Secondary Schools Head Association says the state has only disbursed 4,000 shillings capitation for every student leaving schools grappling with huge pending bills. Those are the main stories. But other highlights: Court of Appeal to rule on rollout of new health plan today. That's a big one. And counties set to wait a bit longer for 272 billion shilling transfer of resources to take time, says PS Bitok. If we flip the paper to the back page of the Daily Nation, PS says transfer of devolved resources to take time. That's a highlight of just read. That's PS Bitok, who says that the president set February deadline for consensus on functions to be devolved. And that's the Daily Nation this Friday.
All right, let's take a look at the Standard. And I wish when you asked me about Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, flip to page 20 real fast, and as I'm Kenya there. But then it is in case you were like me, as a Gen Z, don't really understand and hadn't seen Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, you can take a look at all that there. All right.
It's interesting that we have 30-year-olds who have no idea who Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was.
Oh, yes. Let's take a look at the front page. I have the front page of the Standard as well as the Pulse. I'm curious, which one should we start with? But because we have...
I know why you're focusing on the Pulse. It is a Friday, I'll give you that. But
Right, let's take a look at the Standard first. Attack questions as TSC withdraws 17 school teachers. And there's a quote there by Ms. Helen Nyang'ao, who's the Kakamega County Education Director. All 17 teachers have indeed been transferred from Isongo Secondary School. The issue to do with their replacement and how long it will take lies fully with the TSC. So this comes after parents had attacked the teachers there over poor KCSE results. And now this has created a new kind of suffering for students caught up in the crossfire. That is on page 5. Other stories on the front page, at the very bottom: homicide detectives robbed in probe on Nakuru doctor's death. Away from that, Ruto seeks to repair relations with neighbors. President Ruto will today seek to steady Kenya's strained relationships with her neighbors when he meets regional leaders, including Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, on the sidelines of 2 meetings, that is IGAD, as well as the NAM Summit in Kampala, Uganda. On the left strip, while Rigathi beat an about turn on going after judge, Deputy President says he will not proceed to petition for judge's removal to give a chance to talks between the President and the JSC. At the very top scroll, 30 years later, remembering Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, on page 4, as well as page 20. And matters cost of living, tighten your belt, says IMF. All right, and in matters sports, today's a big day we were waiting for. Senegal versus Cameroon.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday we were hoping for the Egypt-Ghana, trying to see who will. And I remember telling you, both of them are big guns, so it's going to be interesting to see who will.
I love the comparison today, Senegal versus Cameroon. They're talking about which lion will roar louder.
Oh, yes.
You know, the Cameroonian national team is called the Indomitable Lions.
And the Lions of Tulango.
The Lions of Teranga.
Yes.
So which lions will roar louder today?
Oh, yes.
That's a nice wordplay there.
Other games to be played today: Cape Verde versus Mozambique at 5 p.m. East African time. Senegal versus Cameroon, 8 p.m. For me, this is a must-watch. And Guinea versus Gambia at around 11 p.m. But away from that, Say My Name, the front page of the Pulse. Stories behind celebs' stage names on pages 8 and 9. And they have a photo there of, it reminds me of the last time we were taking a look at the Ugandan paper and the beautiful lady who's there.
Oh, memory is good.
Oh,
Nice
yes.
memory.
But the real focus here is the stories behind celebs' stage names. I'm curious, Fred, if you're an artist, which name will you have picked?
I love my name Freddie. I think it still works.
You'll have gone with Freddie?
Freddie still works.
All right.
I've used it forever, and you see. What would your stage name be?
Nyeringita. Nyeringita is very unique.
People struggle with that name.
Exactly, because you'll be curious, what's that name, Nyeringita?
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the dailies and we take a look at the Taifa Leo. Ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, habari kuu pale. Ushuru zaidi waja. Shirika la fedha ulimwenguni IMF laidhinisha mkopo mwingine wa mabilioni kwa Kenya, huku likihimiza serikali ikaze kamba katika harakati zake za ukusanyaji ushuru. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili, na kuna picha pale Rais William Ruto akiwa na mkurugenzi mkuu wa shirika la fedha IMF Dr. Kristalina Georgieva. IMF yashinikiza serikali kuanza kutekeleza mipango ya kuongeza mapato kwa wakati mmoja kuanzia sasa. Hiyo ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Vidokezo zaidi: ugaidi, Mandera walaumiwa. Kwingineko, mfungwa ajifungulia gerezani. Mshukiwa wa mauaji ya Shakahola ajitokeza kotini akiwa na mtoto mchanga. Na kwenye jarida la Bambika na picha pale ya Rihanna, rapa Kenrezi kamvulia kofia msanii Bahati na mkewe Diana Marua kukigeuza ndoa yao mbinu za kuangazia riziki. Kwenye masuala ya spoti pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, kivumbi Senegal Cameroon wakipimana nguvu AFCON leo. Mechi ya kukata na shoka inatarajiwa kati ya mabingwa watetezi Senegal na washindi mara 5 Cameroon wa kombe la Afrika AFCON watakapovaana katika mechi yao ya pili kwenye makala ya 34 ugani Charles Konan Bani mjini ya Musokro saa 2 usiku leo. Hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo hii leo.
Let's take a look at People Daily. Have it on the screens, on both screens here. Gachagua chickened out of the judge petition, and they have Grand Mullah banned from Supreme Court at the very top scroll. But a highlight on this one here, there's a quote by the DP notes the current national discourse on judicial transparency in this regard. The Deputy President will not proceed with the matter of the petition for now. So I'm curious, because the choice of words here...
Most importantly,
for now. So it is pending for him. So maybe a change of thought later on, probably proceed with the matter. The very left scroll, Nigerians protest after police goof in murder probe. We'll be discussing this later on with Bansi. There's a whole social media was a buzz yesterday, and mostly X, after Radio Presenter Kwombox was got to the whole crossfire, mentioning, she does a whole video saying, well, I don't really care what you say about Nigerians dancing in an Afrobeat, song, and Kenyans on social media are like, what's happening here? We'll be discussing that really. Moving on, IMF demands more taxes on Kenyans. Global lender gives Treasury 110 billion Kenyan shillings with strings attached. And that is the front page of People Daily this morning.
All right. Let's take a look at the Star. And on the Star, exposed the big ethnic disparity in government jobs. That's a big headline. Kikuyu and Kalenjin are grossly overrepresented in our civil service. Disparity cuts across promotions, training, share of board positions, and internship. And on the front page, they have how jobs are distributed among the main ethnic communities in Kenya, with the Kikuyu, Kalenjin, Luo, and Luya occupying the highest number. And some of those, the bottom 10 communities that occupy some of the positions, There's some communities here that are not even known, like the Konso, the Nubi, the Oma, Sakuye, Wayu, Dahalo, and others, that some of them have no one, no representation at all in the civil service. That's a big headline on the front page of the Star. Other stories there, Charlene Ruto appointed blood envoy. And yes, a story about the Grand Mullah, Supreme Court bans lawyer Ahmed Nasir. And that's the front page of the Star.
Let's talk money matters now. Treasury admits deal with Gulf oil farms. The flop is the front, rather the big story in Business Daily. Concerns over forex market distortions and December exit plan reveal. They have all that on the whole IMF reports, the whole oil supply deal with 3 state-owned Gulf companies. Other stories on the front page. On the left side, billionaire Balu Bai takes 1.29% stake in Cooperative Bank. On the right side, that ticker there matters the top news. 4.4 billion cash shillings released for student loans and scholarships. Matters companies. Regulator warns Airtel Telecom over poor quality services. Matters markets. Manufacturers raise prices by 9% amid rising costs. And that is the front page of the Business Daily.
Latest now, crossing over to Uganda. Take a look at the new vision.
In Kampala.
In Kampala, and they even have a picture of our president there. It's a big news. IGAD condemns Sudan conflict, a new vision. There's a big newspaper in Uganda. Museveni says ideological bankruptcy responsible for African wars. And we have a picture of some of the leaders attending the IGAD summit yesterday. They are in Uganda, of course, for the Non-Aligned Movement Summit, and they'll be attending the event today. And it's a very, if you could just show the picture of the presidents, taking that portrait of the presidents there, and look at the fashion. We're still on the new vision. Just the picture on the front page of the new vision. And there's, yes, President Museveni's fashion there is what attracts me. You can see he's a host, and I think I like the fact that when you grow into an old man,
you don't really
the
care.
things that don't really bother you at all. And this, and he has to have that. He has to have
well,
that
he's missing the Godfather.
He has it. He's holding it.
Oh yeah, he's holding it.
Yeah, he had to remove it for the photo. But his fashion, huh?
It reflects someone we know. In the top executive in Kenya, when he entered office.
Oh, well, I don't think he's going to. Well, that's a new vision. I see where you're going. Let's take a look at the Daily Monitor. Still in Uganda, why IGG raided Government Investment Authority. The Daily Monitor today steers clear of the NAM summit, which has been the biggest discussion in Uganda. There's an image there of Cecilia Ogwa, lioness of Lango, goes to rest, 1946 to 2024. And this image has also been on the New Vision.
New Vision, yes.
So I guess it's someone that in Uganda, she's well respected. But no mention of NAM on the front page of the Daily Monitor today. Interesting.
Oh, yes. Tuingie pale Tanzania, or rather we can actually start with Rwanda and see what is happening. Have it here on the News Times. Studying in Rwanda through eyes of international scholars, a story on pages 4 and 5. Rwanda has over 40 higher education institutions, including globally recognized universities. Let me just pinch that out. But then they have a photo there of Samuel Uwikunda, a Rwandan referee, making a debut in the AFCON 2023. Other stories that are happening in Rwanda: electronic land titles helping to check fraud, and top 5 global threats to beware of beyond 2024. And finally, where are Rwanda's hot springs? On page 8. Remember last year talking about how we should really visit Tanzania, but I feel like this year should be going to Rwanda. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things to see in Rwanda.
Limuki is there. All right. Tuende Bongo. Tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi. Na kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi hii leo asema siri, sikiza hii, siri ya kuoa mapema na kuishi umri mrefu. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Mwananchi, siri ya kuoa mapema na kuishi umri mrefu. Wataalamu wa tiba ya afya saikolojia waeleza sababu na faida zake. WHO yatoa tofauti ya umri wa kuishi kwa wanawake na wanaume. Daktari Mzigi ataja mambo nyeti ya kuepuka. Lakini wanasema ni siri, kuna siri ya kuoa mapema na kuishi umri mrefu. Kuna vidokezo zaidi, lakini Kiswahili kitatuchanganya pale. Utitiri wa michango ya shule wa wazazi kusomesha. Lakini habari kuu pale, siri ya kuoa mapema na kuishi umri mrefu.
On the Citizen, matters business, PCCB speaks out of SAP $222 million. And try to see the PCCB initials stand for what. But then matters sugar continue to make headlines in Tanzania. Sugar crisis to ease in the next few days. And Ethiopia ex-Prime Minister offers to revive Arusha flower farms. And I'm seeing matters flowers here. Reminds me, we'll be having this conversation with Bansi later on. And this is a conversation that has been happening this week. As a gentleman, can you carry flowers on the Nairobi streets?
If I'm going to plant them somewhere, probably.
But then not actually carrying them and taking them to...
It's like carrying tree seedlings during that tree planting and tree growing holiday. And you're going to plant them somewhere. It's okay.
Well,
it's flowers, you can have them delivered. You don't have to carry them.
So you basically tell the delivery guy to patane mbele.
All right, let's come back home and take a look at... We'll be having that discussion next month. Let's take a look at...
Valentine's is coming, yes.
Yes, and matters AFCON, making it to the cartoon on the Standard, page 16. And you see the way Kenyans and Ugandans have been making fun of Tanzania's loss against Morocco, because Tanzania lost 3-0 to Morocco. But Tanzania says and reminds us, and rightly so, bora mimi niko humu, nyie wa Kenya na Waganda mbona hampo? So Ugandans and Kenyans are laughing at Tanzanians losing, yet Tanzanians at least made it to the AFCON tournament. We're just watching it on TV. And even the Kenyans who've attended, I've seen they're making a lot of noise on the streets of
Ivory Coast.
Yamoussoukro. But, well, who are you vouching for? That's a cartoon on the Standard. On the Daily Nation, matters political parties. And there are two parties there. One is Jubilee, the other one is PA, represented by small vehicles and different people carrying vehicles or parts of the vehicles and leaving the main chassis. I think the ODM leader or the Azimio leader has moved with quite a lot or made many members of the PA party, which is a Kenya Kwanza affiliate. Yet so many of the members still owe allegiance to Azimio. Same thing happening to Jubilee Party. While the party is still in Azimio, quite a number of members have sworn allegiance to the Kenya Kwanza administration.
Plus, you can see the former driver of that.
He's still the driver.
Vehicle. Well, he's still the
former driver at the
yes.
corner.
Oh, yes, the owner, looking at whoever is trying to steer ahead that chassis, and they're like, ooh.
I tell you.
All right. Let's cross over to the People Daily, and
page 10.
It's page 10, kama kawaida. They have an officer there, and as well as mysterious matters. So it's a whole balance with the police and the whole mysterious matters that are actually happening in the country. And it seems as if the whole mysterious matters are really going to overburdening even the police system. Really, that is what Stano's take is on the People Daily today.
All right, and that will be forming part of our discussion this morning. There are many cases of women being killed. Today we'll be having a panel of women for this discussion. Wanja Maina, National Chairperson, Jubilee Party, PWD's League. Linda Banja, an advocate and co-lead GBV and Young Women Caucus. Denita Gatti, gender, women's right and disability advocate, and Wanjiku Thiga, gender justice and political activist. These are our panelists this morning as we take a look at what's really happening with this rising cases of women being killed. We do expect that women leaders will be also issuing a statement later today on the intimate partner violence cases that are rising as well. So you can be part of this conversation online.
Oh, yes.
Even as we continue discussing, you can share your views with us on social media handles, on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Do stand by for a lot more entertainment later on the show, so don't go anywhere. When you see my friend here, Nyaringita, in a t-shirt, you know something good is coming up later on. Do stand by for that. You're watching Morning Cafe.
I was actually prepared with the whole, denim jacket and everything to match with the whole flow, but producer Lydia akasema wacha watu waone misuli leo. Oh yes. It's a January, but wacha tu watu waone misuli leo.
Mimi sikuambiwa nitoe jacket. Misuli ni
they saw you struggling kufunga koti, but they were like, Fred, utachoma leo.
It's only Ghana.
You can always talk to us and tell us which kind of music you really want to DJ kuchezea pale. We'll be giving you details later on. But first, let's take a short break. Remember this particular conversation. What are your thoughts on this really? As a country, where should we really be going forward?
that hashtag Stop Killing Women has been trending for the past 1 week here in Kenya. And yes, the gruesome murder of Rita Waini, the 20-year-old university student whose dismembered body was discovered on Sunday at some rented apartment in Roysambu. That has been the biggest talking point this week. And it has brought about a whole debate, which we will be focusing on today. Cases of women being killed, many people are referring to this as femicide, and women leaders will today be issuing a statement to the media with regards to intimate partner violence, and we'll be looking forward to that statement to see exactly what they want addressed. It is also what we want to discuss here with my panelists this morning. We have 4 panelists today, but so far in studio we have GOtv, gender, justice and political activist. Karibu sana TV47.
Thank you.
It's good to have you in studio for this conversation.
Happy to be here.
Also with us this morning, Denita Gatti, gender, women's right and disability advocate. Karibu sana TV47.
Thank you very much.
And let's hope to have a good conversation about this. But before we get to that, a quick look at the headlines. On the Daily Nation, IMF's bitter pill for taxpayers. No respite. Kenyans are set for another season of more tax pain as the government starts implementing International Monetary Fund-backed revenue measures that are expected to yield an additional 806 billion shillings over the next 3 years. On the Standard, the big headline, attack questions as TSC withdraws 17 teachers, matters education. You can see quite a lot of different topics or headlines today. Usually, when there's a big talking point, most of the headlines do have a sense of agreement on what the big story is. But yesterday, all the papers were talking about Rita Waini, that 20-year-old who was murdered. But before we get to that, this topic about IMF and the taxation measures, and we'll probably link it even to the kind of criminal activities that we're seeing right now. A lot has been said about the taxation measures implemented by the Kenya Kwanza administration, now in its 16th, almost 17th month in office. And many would have hoped that with a kind of uproar that a lot could have changed, probably a revision or a relook at the taxation measures. But seeing the headline on the Daily Nation, it does not appear like Kenyans are going to get any relief anytime soon. What would you say to this, given the kind of economic struggle that many Kenyans are having? Return to school especially. Many parents are complaining that even just affording school fees is a big problem. Wanjiku, let's start with you.
Thank you for having me. You know, it's sad that we are seeing that things are getting tougher, but it's time for us to realize that neocolonialism continues to exist. We have punitive and strict measures that are being imposed on Africa, and Kenya being an African country, you see, you're able to see that we are still under colonization. We still aren't able to negotiate better for ourselves. And I really align to the quote that Thomas Sankara said, we must dare to invent the future. Mm-hmm. And it's really a time for Africa to wake up and do better, negotiate for itself better. And this means that, you see, during colonization, Africa, its economic activities was to provide raw materials for the West. And that's what we continue to do. We never, even look at food security. We can't be able to provide for ourselves food, but we live in it's a continent that is full of, the agriculture it can really thrive. Mm-hmm. So it's about time that we now start shifting. And I like that the president is a big champion of African renaissance, and we have to start moving towards that direction. We have to be able to unyoke ourselves from the colonialist.
Yes, you mentioned rightly that President William Ruto is a champion of African Renaissance. But you can see the image on the front page of the Daily Nation is of a woman who many Kenyans have never seen or known about. Denita, this is IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. And by having a picture here on the front page, it would appear that she's the one behind these taxation measures that we are experiencing. And when Wanjiku talks about neocolonialism, that's exactly what she's talking about. The fact or the influence that these Bretton Woods institutions still have on our economy, on our leadership, and on this new administration.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think there's nothing to celebrate as a country. Even as much as we say the president is a he's a champion. I've met Kristalina so many times in the corridors of Washington D.C. on so many events when I was serving in Parliament. And it's unfortunate she's a woman, but you know she has to do her job. We can't say that because she's a woman she she's putting measures. But I can tell you, as a country, we are not doing well. And we still depend, and it's unfortunate that at this point in time we still depend on IMF and partners to actually dictate how what we need to do with our loans and everything. So for me, I still think that even in less than 2 years of President Ruto's administration, really, there's nothing we can celebrate. Everything is too high. Inflation is way too high in this country. People are overtaxed. I mean, every day everybody is overtaxed. I don't know why it's this regime that has all of a sudden realized that there were loopholes in taxation. Every day you wake up and every ministry, every department, is asking you for taxes. I mean, we cannot. Do you want to tell me that the other administrations were not keen on taxation? How come then it is now? You want to tell me that this administration has now seen that there were so many loopholes? I personally tend to think that we are experiencing what we are experiencing as a country is not really fair. Everyone is overtaxed. The country is I don't know what to say. Yeah. For me, I really lack words to say, but I can tell you the inflation rate in this country is way too high. We cannot afford to overborrow. We are completely overborrowing, and there have been calls for us to really rethink how we are overborrowing, how we are depending on these donors. Donors are not here to donors or these bodies like IMF. They're not here to dictate how much we need to borrow, what measures, how are we going to use our money, what are the other assets like Kenya has to sell and give out there to get money. So there's a lot of I don't know whether this is still colonialism or neocolonialism that is going on, but I've never experienced such huge borrowing in my lifetime for the 45 years I've lived. It is quite...
And it's a kind of shift within the first 1 year, 6 months or so of this new administration. And because the president has been criticized quite a lot for giving in too much to these institutions, IMF, the World Bank and others. And many are wondering, fine, because Kenya Kwanza administration has painted a picture of the kind of trouble that Kenya was in, and blamed a lot of it on the previous administration. But does it mean that there cannot be homegrown solutions to some of these problems facing Kenya or other African countries? That the only solution we have is to turn to the IMF or the World Bank as a remedy?
I think it is so important if we look inward, because the solutions, most of the time we even replicate what we see outside there, and we just pick and just paste. We don't contextualize issues to Africa and to Kenya ourselves. So it's important for us to look inward. And I've seen among the ways that the president is looking inward is, more taxes. And unfortunately, that is not a sustainable solution. Sustainability will lie in us being able to make more money with the imports, the exports that we will do. How can we make more money as a nation? can we have more industries than the churches that we have?
Mm-hmm.
Can we be able to fund young people with innovative tech startups, so that you can be able to even give more employment to young people, so that the unrest and chaos that is continuing in Kenya to end. So it's so important. I hope, or I would assume that the president has tried to look for inward solutions, and it is my hope that his advisors are able to do that, but we honestly need to look for inward solutions, because like you've said, these institutions like the IMF, they're not here to assist us. Mm-hmm. For them, they need us to continue being yoked to them, because that's how they make their money. Okay. And that day we are going to realize that they never mean well for us. It's the day that we are going to release, get done with them, mm-hmm. and make solutions that will work for us. Okay. If you look at the money they've pumped in Africa, in Kenya, it's so much, but you ask why is the debt burden still high? Mm-hmm. And I remember during the post-COVID, there was a campaign that was being run by Vatican, and they were saying, can you forgive debts in Africa and Kenya? Mm-hmm. But of course, IMF didn't listen to that. Yeah. And this was the Pope, the Vatican, really going out and doing a whole advocacy around it. Mm-hmm. But they will not forgive such, or they will not pardon such debts. Yeah. And also, if you look at the debts that we have, some are not for solutions, to give solutions. Some end up in people's pockets, mm-hmm. you see? So even them, they're looking at the illicit financial flows. They're like, okay, we give you money, but most of it, we are able to see that they ended up in people's pockets, yes. And not development and transformation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Denita, you've been a member of parliament. Are you concerned with how fast the Kenya Kwanza administration turned to IMF and the World Bank? Within a year, they had already gone to seek help there, because fine, we've been warned that we were at risk of going the Ghana way, the Ethiopia way, the Malawi way, that we were going to default on our loans, and that was going to spell doom for us. But there was a lot of hope that the Kenya Kwanza administration would come up with very creative ways of resolving our economic issues. But now you're seeing like they went for a quick fix.
Those were the Kenya Kwanza's pledges and manifesto, was actually to fight corruption. And it's unfortunate that the first thing that Kenya Kwanza did and has done is constant showing that they depend on foreigners and on IMF and other bodies. The president is all over the world looking for money, and this is huge. And I don't know why Kenya Kwanza is not really thinking about the implication of this of these loans that we are taking. Look at this headline now. If Kenya is expected to borrow 8 or 6 billion, you see, 8 or 6 billion over the next 3 years, then that means what? Mm-hmm. This is quite a huge amount of money to be paid. Who is going to pay? Because Kenya Kwanza came in and said the former regime had overborrowed and they wanted to seal all the loopholes. And we thought this is it. And it's unfortunate that it is still continuing to add more and more and more. And when we came when Kenya Kwanza came into office, we actually thought they were going to seal the loopholes. Corruption is way too high in this country. And they had actually pledged to fight corruption. You cannot overborrow. You cannot keep on borrowing when corruption, the money, as my colleague is saying, money gets into people's pockets. A lot of it gets into people's pockets. And then you continue to borrow. That means we are bringing a huge burden in the next regime that is going to come. I don't know whether Kenya Kwanza plans to have a 10-year regime, rule to be able to sort out this mess.
As a former parliamentarian, do you think that the current houses of legislation are doing enough to check the government in as far as this the conduct on the economy is concerned? Because many people are criticizing the legislature. Now, from an outsider looking in, do you think they're doing well?
Parliament is trying. But again, there are times you see Parliament gets compromised. and we pass, we pass laws and bills that are not, in tandem with what Kenyans want. Because if it is things like this overtaxation, we have committees of parliament, the finance committee, we have the public accounts, we have the public investment, the PAC, and now we have a new one called the special funds accounts committee. All these are watchdog committees that really put the president and the executive on toes. But at times it also becomes compromised. And you have seen, parliament is just a matter of numbers. It's all about numbers to be able to pass, even crucial bills and motions and things like that that really concern Kenyans. And I think it's high time that parliament really became serious and became independent without the influence of the executive to be able to know that, what is the implication of us overborrowing 8 or 6 billion in a span, in the span of 3 years. That is huge. What will that mean to the next generation or to the next regime? That will mean that the next government will be able to now say, oh, the former regime overborrowed, now we want to sort this out. And again, it is a continuous, is a cycle of dependence and poverty. These are things that are really putting us down. Our inflation in this country is way too high. Kenyans are extremely overtaxed. It's not a teacher. It is not everybody's overtaxed. And, in the West, they actually, as of now, as you have seen throughout the Western media, they're actually even calling for overtaxation of the rich and the wealthy. Those are the people that are overtaxed in the West. In Kenya, even a small sweeper and a teacher and, people who really don't earn money that is, substantial enough are being overtaxed, are being asked to pay taxes. I've told you, you wake up every day and you're being told you have to pay this tax, this. From where? Okay. We do not understand.
Do you think that other institutions are protecting Kenyans enough from probably some excesses or possible excesses by the executive? Case in point in this borrowing or in its interaction with the IMF and other international bodies. For example, Parliament. Do you think they're protecting the Kenyan enough?
I just even would like just to add what Mheshimiwa said. Most of the times, what I think most Kenyans don't have, and it's civic education. A lot of times we'll call out the president about the taxes and the budgets, the financial budgets. But who we should hold accountable? It's the finance committees. Those are the people who are in charge of taking care of the public purse. And it is our duty, it is our mandate to understand exactly which members of National Assembly, the MNAs, that sit in that committee. Those are the people that we need to tag. Those are the people we need to question. So this amount came in. What is it doing? As Kenyans, we need to know how exactly this, okay, you've taken a loan, but how is this loan servicing Kenyans? Okay, we also need transparency. Do we exactly know how much loans we have? How much do we pay per month? Back to how much interest has this loan accrued? If we could even have such kind of transparency and accountability from the government, maybe even our trust with the government can increase. Maybe we can even understand that the government honestly has its genuine concern for Kenyans. But if we work with a translucent, you can't see the process. If the process is not even transparent, then you will just think this money comes in, doesn't do anything. It may be at the end of the day, maybe the president is really doing a lot, but we can't tell.
We can't see it.
We can't see it.
All right. Time for us to take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indemuli. We'll continue with these discussions, but now we want to move on to the main discussion of the day, and this is we'll be focusing on the cases of women being killed, and this one emanates from the two cases that were quite prominent this year within a span of 1 week or so. At the beginning of this year, that death of a young lady at a rented apartment in South B, and now Rita Waini, the latest case from Sunday in Roysambu. And that will be the main discussion. You can be part of that through our social media as well, so do that. Let's take a break now. trending, especially on X for the past 1 week or so, and will continue trending because this conversation continues. And it is what we want to talk about now. I'm still in studio with Denita Gatti, gender, women's rights and disability advocate. Also Wanjiku Thiga, gender justice and political activist. And we now want to delve into this discussion. And although it is not featuring mainly on the dailies today, it was one of the big discussions this week. And if I could just go back to the Standard yesterday. I have it somewhere here. Yes, there we go. The Standard yesterday painted a picture of what exactly is ailing this country. Killers, chilling SMS demands revealed, and that was the main headline. But they listed the number of victims, women victims who have fallen victim to this kind of crime. And there was one 20-year-old, Phyllis Jepleting. There was another one called Nyambura, the Scarlett Wahu, June Jerop, and now Rita Waini. Now, these are just the ones that have been recorded. Many more cases do happen, and I think even just going through the wires in the newsroom, I could see more and more criminal activity being reported associated with this kind of violence, especially against women. Now, I want to talk about this because there's been an outcry following those two incidents that came within 1 week of each other, and there was so much that was in common with them because the women were lured into rented accommodation, short-term rented accommodation, just before the crime that happened within hours. And it is the nature of the crime itself that probably caused so much upheaval. But many people are asking, why isn't there uproar when murders in general are committed? Why are we only coming out when women are affected and it seems like it is a threat? Wanjiku, I know, and we are not saying it is wrong, but let's start from there so that we just paint a picture of why women are coming out now to say, no, stop, let's look at this.
Fred, it's an interesting way to put it. What's happening is that you are seeing hate crimes. Actually, it's not just murders, because murders, homicide keep happening, but what is happening is hate crime, and it's targeted to women. The reason why there's an uproar is because we women are speaking for ourselves, because they say if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. You're not enjoying it. It's so painful to see how brutal those murders are. And these murders are not being caused by, most of them are not caused by people you don't know. Most of them are caused by your intimate partners that women are having in their lives. These are women who have been intimate with a man. So they're very close home, and that's why there's such an uproar, and that's why the work that, and I identify myself as a feminist, the work that we are doing as women rights advocates is that we are coming out to talk about it. And it's not easy work, because once you start speaking for yourselves as women, already we are branded angry, bitter feminist. But I wonder, do men want us to smile while we were being killed and murdered violently? The other day in Diwa, yesterday, a girl was cooking ugali. They killed her and they even took her head with it. I think, why would that happen? You can see the hate, the resentment, the dehumanization of women that is coming out from our male counterparts. What exactly wrong did we do to men that they would do this to us? Their God-given mandate was to protect women. Why are men veering so off from it? Where is the church right now? Why isn't it reminding men their role in this world?
Wow.
And that's why we have an uproar today.
Denita?
Yeah, Fred, we have never, as a country, experienced this kind of targeted killings on women, and especially women and girls. We have never seen. The years have grown in this country. I've never, and I don't know why it is happening now. The femicide, what we are calling femicide, the killings are way too much. And they are actually perpetuated and they are caused by intimate partners Funny enough, and you have seen recently these deaths occurring in areas where traditionally we thought were safer. Hotel, I mean Airbnbs. Airbnbs are safe environments where, you know, even if, let me tell you, there's no justification for murder.
That's not.
Absolutely no. Whether it is a woman murdering a man or a man murdering a woman, but the increasing rate of femicide, increasing rates of murders targeting women in this country, and that's why we see women have actually, you know, come out. The women's movement is out. FIDA is out. CRU is out. Right now, as we speak today, the presidential advisor on women's rights, the Honorable Harriet Chigai, has a press conference to actually, you know, condemn these increasing rates of violence against women, these increasing rates of murders against women. There's nothing like you know, the way media reports. You know, media reports murder by an intimate partner as crime against murder of crime of passion. There's nothing passionate about murder.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing passionate about murder.
Actually, media
and we want to challenge the media to do better in terms of reporting, and especially reporting on intimate partner violence. There's nothing passionate about murder. Murder is murder. You know, we cannot say, oh, you know the way sometimes media, you know, it has a lot of sensations on intimate partner violence. If I am caught in an Airbnb, what right does my partner have to kill me, to murder me? And when media takes it up and say, oh, because she was, you know, she's used to this kind of, we cannot sensationalize murder. Intimate partner violence must be addressed. And that's why we as women leaders, I am a disabled feminist, and I'm proud of it. We are talking about women. What about those disabled women who are murdered and their deaths are just spoken about in hush tones? Hush tones because they're disabled. They cannot speak for themselves. Now, we want to call upon, and that's what we are saying, we want to call upon the president to declare intimate partner violence, to declare femicide a national disaster. Yes. And he must tell us, as women of this country who pay taxes, what measures is the office of the president putting in place. He must empower the office of the advisor of women's rights. He has to advise, because the office of the advisor of the president on women's rights must be empowered enough to be able to collect information about this femicide, about intimate partner violence, everywhere in this country, to be able to advise the president.
Okay.
You see, we want to see measures that have to be taken. Other countries, developed countries, where I have lived and worked and studied, have measures that look around the issues of femicide, so that we're able to see how are we tracking down. What are the trends of femicide? We cannot just say violence. There is violence and then there is femicide, intimate partner violence. These are things that we must address in this country to be able to put it to the end.
And a lot of these conversations are happening on social media. A lot of the discussion on social media. And there was a trend, especially with the last two cases that made it to the front pages, where it would appear many people were blaming the victims for their actions and saying this happened because you are engaging in this. What do you say to that, Wanjiku?
Fred, when you say many people, who exactly do you mean?
Well, it was across board. It was across board. I saw even some women.
Very few women, but it's the men folk who love to blame the victim. Because at the end of the day, I've never seen men take accountability. It's not women killing women. It's men killing women. And I'm not seeing men saying, hey, men, we need to stop killing women. It's, you know, girls, this is my advice. Kindly go and have dates in public. We all do that. We are so hyper-vigilant. Every day, Fred, when I go out, even today morning when I was coming to studio, I have to share my ride with somebody who's close to me. It's a feature on Uber, and that's why we even boycotted Bolt as women. Because every single time we are vigilant. We are hyper-vigilant. Can we just see Kenyans, and especially our male counterparts, can we see them saying, we need to stop killing our women? I would love to see that. What we need to see is to stop telling women, oh, don't wear this. Just what you are saying, don't rape women. Because I know that men understand consent, because consent, when you want to have sex, you have to have consent. And most men pretend that they don't understand consent. But try touching a man's phone, then you will know that he understands what consent is. Try to touch his money, he understands what consent is. So what you want to see from our male counterparts is them really standing by our side, protecting us. Because at the end of the day, if men weren't killing women, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We wouldn't be marching on 27th, because we have a whole march that we want to do. The world must come, Kenya must come to a standstill and understand that the plight of women right now is at risk. And you have to respect women. You cannot only respect women you're attracted to, or women who are just around your life, like your sisters, your mother. You have to respect all women.
Okay. Allow me to welcome into this discussion Wanja Maina. She's the National Chairperson, Jubilee Party, PWD's League. Karibu sana, Wanja.
Thank you so much, Fred.
It's good to see you in the new year.
Yes.
Today we're having a different kind of discussion, not the usual politics that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about the cases of women being killed. Your colleagues here have made their stance known, but I want to look at it from a societal perspective. Are we seeing a degeneration of the relationship between men and women in Kenyan society? Because a few years back, there was a lot of uproar when a few cases, or quite a number of cases, of women being assaulted in public were taking place. Women being undressed by unruly matatu touts and drivers, especially in town, who accused them of probably dressing inappropriately. We saw a few cases or instances where women inside matatus were being attacked. It had not gotten to murder by then, but now we are seeing that we are talking more and more about the victims ending up dead and not just feeling violated. Is it a degeneration of the relationship between Kenyan men and the women?
Thanks so much, Fred. Just to agree with my two friends and colleagues for what they have said. And I think, Fred, you've started by saying that today we are having a different kind of topic. Today is not politics. You'll be very surprised how political and how intertwined these things are. For example, if I could digress kidogo and talk about technology-facilitated violence against women in politics. I tell you what, if today we start vying, there's a likelihood that tomorrow, when they're talking about my Mheshimiwa's candidature, they are likely to use the other things that make her different from the male candidates, which are issues of gender, sexuality, marriageability, with or without children, disability, age. Those are things that do happen. So there's a lot of technology-facilitated violence against women. Now, to come to this issue of the young women and the issues of has it been happening, for me, sometimes I tend to ask myself, is it that it has been happening? It's just that it has not been recorded. Is it that it has been happening? It's just that it never got into the media limelight. These issues have been confined into a conversation of Airbnbs, furnished apartments, and I think that is trivializing such an important matter. Even in villages, in lodgings, in non-Nairobi areas, there are always those kind, and you know, sometimes even as a country we need to get serious. Whenever you hear stories about, you know, when like in the mortuaries you hear there's a woman who is unidentified. How is she not unidentified? What are the circumstances? So for me, this issue of the two young women who's 2 or 3 and many others whom I sympathize with together with their families, I think it has brought about the broader conversations around how come we are having women whose only crime I think is just existence, doing their things, but even in death, the double standards remain. Morality, what are you doing? Stop loving money, which in itself is not addressing. You know, when we say that women in Kenya, we have moved forward, we are doing very well, it's like we are watering the leaves, but the roots are still very dry. Why do I say that? Why I say that is because, as Wajiko has said, whenever you are confronted by these subjects, we usually say that, you know, I respect women. They are my daughters, they are my sisters, they are our moms. But you ought to respect people regardless of their familial relationships with them. Because if we are really a true conscious society, and we've seen it in the past, we saw in America when a black person, George Floyd, was killed, even though that person was not their family members, it brought about a major anger and a major issue around talking about the rights of black people. So in the case of Kenya, it is not that the statistics it is not a new phenomenon. It's just that it has just happened that the lady in question maybe was famous online. It has happened that the media has actually taken the issue into the spotlight. But for me, is that Kenya, we have a problem with how we treat our women.
Is it a societal problem, and this is a question I'm asking, between the men and women, that yes, we've seen the kind of strife, the kind of struggles, especially from when the campaign for the empowerment of women began. And the man in Kenya has, so to say, grown weaker and weaker, and the woman has become more empowered, and that has created an imbalance. Are we seeing a degeneration as a direct result of that? Because as I gave the example of what was happening a few years back with just assault of women on the streets, and now we're seeing more and more victims ending up dead. What would you say about the relationship between men and women in Kenya?
Men have been empowered. Men have been on top for far too long. And it is, and I do not know why they would feel endangered. Because the recent movements have just tried to raise women, at least some, to be somewhere. But I think again the ratio at which women have quickly moved probably has caused men to sit back and feel like women are taking over, and psychologically men are supposed to be on top, isn't it? They're supposed to be higher, and for me, I sometimes look at it that way. Probably it's because men are feeling like women have they've all of a sudden risen so fast, but that should not even be a case. Let me tell you, relationships now between a man and a woman, they have always been there. Women have always been, even when you're on top, you are at the end of the day, you are married, isn't it? As a woman, you need this man. But the rate at which this femicide and gender-based gender-based violence, and especially men hitting women, since tradition, women have been having issues in their homes. But have we ever seen situations where women are killed? Mm-hmm. It is now that we're witnessing a new trend that is extremely disturbing. And that's why we're saying this trend is extremely disturbing, and we must do research to find out what is it. We need a serious research
and
to understand.
Because I'm trying to get to the root cause of what is perpetrating or exacerbating this kind of action towards the extreme. Because yes, men were stronger, hence the need to protect the women. But now you're seeing that the violence is turning against the person you're meant to protect. And you're going to the extreme
of killing.
It's not just fine. They said that initially wife beating was encouraged in traditional society. It never got to the extreme. And I'm not saying we support that kind of violence against women. But why are we getting extreme? Is it a frustration? Is it a frustration in by one of the genders that they're feeling so disempowered for them to actually opt for the extreme? Wanjiku?
It is so hard for me to understand the male gender because, like Wanja has just said, empowerment. When ukienda mashinani, when you go to the grassroots, when you come back to Nairobi, you realize there's no empowerment still at grassroots level. Go to Kilifi, go to Kajiado. Bride sale is still ongoing. Early teenage pregnancy is very much pervasive. Rape, even in towns, is there. We see forced marriages. Female violence has always been there. And it makes me wonder why at this moment a man will feel in any way disempowered. Because women, no matter how much you're trying to move forward and progress, it's harder. The only thing that is different today is that women have a voice. And it's because also we've watched our grandmothers, we've watched our mothers go through a lot of violence back at home. And they will whisper to us, I'm going through this, but I don't want to see you go through this. I'm going through this so that you can get an education, but I want you to choose better for yourself. And I think this is what men hate the most, that a woman will say, don't hit me. A I would like you to provide more for my kids, for our children. Please pay school fees. Please provide at home. Please be home early so that you can assist with helping the children with homework, you see? And I think that's what maybe men don't want.
The cost of living is way too high.
Yeah.
It is this cost of living we are talking about. The current situation is worse.
But you see, but men, even it was harder for men back then because they all had to go to forest to even and they had to even hunt and come home and even nowadays they go to the butchery. It's so easy and they just buy and bring it at home.
Let's draw a parallel between what is happening and the economic situation that is prevailing.
I think,
let's say, is there a direct connection that times are so hard, hence leading many people into crime?
That's excusing behavior.
I would think that,
violence.
Those are hypotheses. Those are stories that you can create. But Fred, I just want to talk about this issue of culture and society. And now you've talked about the economy. Now, there was a study that was done by the National Gender and Equality Commission. It was titled Status of the Boy Child in Kenya. And I believe they were coming from that kind of thinking, the perception that boys are doing better than girls. They did a scientific social science study. And you'll be very surprised that even if you can Google that report, there was nothing whatsoever that showed that girls are doing better than boys.
Thank you.
Now, in the case that girls are being empowered, why is it that there is that? It's like a fallacious thinking that when the girls are empowered, boys are disempowered. So it's like you're saying, for this to happen, this must happen. For girls to do better, boys must do better. The issue of empowerment of women has never been about making boys to be worse. What we are saying is, a girl in Gatondo, where I come from, should have the same equal opportunity to go to school like a girl in Fafi, somewhere in northern Kenya, and a girl in Kakamega. That does not mean that the boys will write harder exams and the girls will write lesser exam. Let's go to political participation of women. In the last election, of all the candidates gazetted by IBC to vie, women were 11% of all the seats combined. So it means that 89% of people who vied were men. Look at the numbers. In this Kenya, you'll be very surprised to know that less than 2% of women own land. For you to have land, probably out of inheritance, out of better economic strength, it means you can access capital in the bank, have it imewekwa kwa kaloni hivi upate. The land ownership of women in Kenya, in fact, the last study by FIDA was at 1.8%. So these issues of saying that mambo ya women empowerment imewafanya kukua hard-headed, because that is where now it heads. You have been empowered, unaongea kizungu mingi, unajua unadhani you are also the man also. What we're saying is, those things are not supported by anything other than a perception that is brought to the fore. However, if the economic issues and the high cost of living are bringing strife in families, let's say that, then it brings about the issue of the government to actually solve the people's problems and make life bearable, if that will mean that lesser women will be killed.
Let's focus more on the economic situation and the prevailing economic situation and link it to some of this extreme behavior. Because yes, and we'll talk even about the issue of mental health, but many people are suffering in different ways from the harsh economic conditions. And just as we're saying, the situation is going to get worse. If we link this kind of criminal activities that we are seeing, because it is criminal. We cannot excuse murder or violence against women. Does it mean, therefore, that we are looking at a possibility of the situation getting worse? That more and more people will be going the extreme in as far as gender-based violence is concerned?
That is what we started by saying. Traditionally, men have been, economically high up. They have been the providers. They have been, everything. And we have taken it, women have always taken it that way. That is how it has been. But again, as much as we are saying the harsh economic times now, of course, Kenya is experiencing a very harsh economic time, and the men are now beginning to feel like, my power in terms of economic, provision and taking care of my home is really coming down. Probably, that is another factor, but that should not be an excuse to the increasing rates of violence against women. And that's why we were saying the current femicide rates in this country is higher than what we have ever seen. Why is it targeting young girls? Why is it targeting an intimate partner? Women in this country, and that's why I started by saying, women in this country must feel safe, both at their homes and in their relationships. There's just no excuse. Mm-hmm. We cannot say now, oh, because the times are difficult, a man can kill. He has no right to kill you. And I started by saying, there is no way we can call murder a crime of passion. There is nothing passionate about murder. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're saying, even you look at the police, the police stations have not done the police have not done their best to addressing this issue of violence against women. When a woman calls a police station to cry and ask for help, the police force in most cases does not believe this woman. Mm-hmm. We must change how the police treat women who call them on issues of violence in their homes. Okay. Police must have a tendency of believing women, especially when a woman calls a police station in distress, to say, oh, I'm having an issue with my husband, my life is in danger, my what. Police must not start saying, oh, unaishi wapi, unakaa wapi, you know, those kind of funny questions. We must train the police force how to respond to women in distress. Okay. That is not that thing is very, very difficult. And that is what is also contributing to these cases. So back to your question, this economic situation in this country, that is way too, you know, and that's what we're saying, these taxes, you know, these taxes are a headache. Taxes we are overtaxed. The inflation is high. Men are not traditionally able to provide the way society expects them to provide. So you know, all those stresses, they now come and pile it on a woman. A small issue, you are hitting a woman. A small issue, you are hitting a woman. And you know, we tend to think that you know, the opposite person or the person next to you is the cause of your problems. But you know, that's why we're saying we must address. There's so much root causes that we are yet to understand. Okay. Now we have women with disabilities in this country, and I told you, Fred, I'm a disabled feminist, and I'm happy about that. Now women with disabilities in rural areas, even in urban areas, have violences, they experience these femicides, and they are killed, and hardly do you hear their stories. And I want the media to bring that up. Okay. We are women with disabilities here. We have been making noise in this country, and we continue to make noise, we as women with disabilities. Because when we're talking about violence against women, we do not hear violence against women with disabilities. Okay. You know, we are left there. Look at those women who have psychological issues, those ones who cannot speak, the deaf, how do we document? And that is what we want to call upon today, even when we are talking to the advice of the president on women's matters. Okay. Women with disabilities are hardly heard of in terms of these discussions around violence and femicide. We
must agree that we cannot resolve this issue by just focusing on one gender. We have to focus on the whole society. And what do you think, apart from the economy, could be contributing to the deterioration, especially the quality of relationships between men and women? Because a woman getting married, one of the things she would say she would enjoy from a marital situation was a protection of her man. But now we are seeing that is no longer a guarantee. What is contributing to the deterioration of relationships between men and women?
What an interesting question. I think also it's because for a long time we've really made excuses on human behavior and not really holding people accountable to why they act the way they do. Because now we will say, there's a lot of mental health issues, and that's why we are seeing more violence meted on women. I mean, even women go through mental issues, but you don't see us gang raping men, killing men. No, we hold ourselves accountable. We go for therapy. We call our friends and talk about the issues that we are going through. We create solutions. In fact, in most homes today, even with women's advancement, you see women also contributing to the purse in the house. We are supporting our men financially. And you see women still do that behavior of when you're in a date and your partner doesn't have money, you give him money under the table. Then he pays. We are honestly also putting our foot forward in supporting men at our homes economically. But when we give excuses for human behavior, that's where we go wrong, because you're not addressing the root causes. Okay. I mean, gun violence, it's most with men, not even with women. If you look at criminal activities, they're more with men and not women. And I also think maybe toxic masculinity could also be an issue. I mean, look at the men.
What is this toxic masculinity that you're talking about?
It's, it's a fragile ego, mostly. And let me say, masculinity is beautiful. I mean, the warmth a man that can provide for you, the leadership, the provision, the protection. Masculinity is so beautiful. But when it becomes toxic, that's when it goes destroying. That's when it goes impregnating women and leaving, walking out. That's why we see a lot of single mothers and deadbeat fathers. They're not holding themselves true and accountable to the kids that they've said outside there. And I mean, if you look at the personalities that most young men are following online, are they really educating young men towards being accountable men in this future? I think men need more solid mentors. Okay. And I think men should step up and mentor each other, because women, we really are stepping up and mentoring each other. We have women who are doing so well, donating their time, because most of them, we call them, they're for free and they show up. So men also have to step up. The great men, and we have great men doing very well in this country, they have to step up and show what fatherhood is, what being a good husband means, what protecting a woman means, and how to solve issues within the house and without conflict.
You've brought up a very interesting point that I want us to move to, the issue of online interactions, because for the younger generation, that's where they get a lot of the information, a lot of the interactions, even that is where they meet the potential dates and spouses, and most of the interaction is online, which has changed the game completely. When you talk about toxic masculinity, that is also where young men get a lot of the information from. What is the role? And do you think this, Wanja, do you think this has affected the kind of relationships people are having? That we are looking, and I'm not trying to blame the victims, but the kind of relationships that young men and women are engaging in are very superficial. You meet today, on a date today, and you want to get intimate today, because that's how fast things happen in this generation. Do you think that that is part of the problem, the kind of online interactions we have? And it's not just about the young girls, even the young men also.
The kind of, lakini unajua, for me to go online right now and say that I was with Fred at TV47, it is people offline, it's me offline who is taking it to the online. So behind those people online are individuals who are projecting their attitudes and their hatred for women, now brought forward through technology facilitated kind of violence. Well, I see the role of owners of social media platforms. For example, if girls are bullied or people post photos and such things. So maybe we could also start asking the role of the people who own those tech facilitated, the owners of the social media platforms, and some of the security features they might have. That said, Fred, you're asking the quality of relationships. There are also people who meet online and they get married and they have a good life. There are people who meet online, and LinkedIn in itself is a way of meeting online. That's why we post everything we do so that we can get jobs. Online has brought about good opportunities. Online has brought about friendships. So for me, I feel like technology is not necessarily bad. The bad thing is the people behind the technology. Because if you look at, for example, the accused in the case of Matara, the guy who, it was reported that he used to message many women online. And I even saw one of the ladies who does activism for people who do sex work. She was saying that that Matara had also contacted another of their friends. So it seems like the bad guys and the perpetrators have infiltrated social media. So the real issue is not even social media, is the bad guys. But Fred, culture, venye watu wanafikiria kwa culture, it is really projected in these online. Say for example, in most communities in Kenya, for example, if I go right now to a police station and say, nimekuja kureport, nini, aliniongelesha vibaya, akaniangalia vibaya, akaniambia wewe nitakupiga. They will think I'm funny. In fact, there is a likelihood that he'll laugh and call his friend to deal with this kasichana kadelusional, kana kuja kusema kameangaliwa vibaya. So this violence, when we talk about violence, we think that mada, kupigwa, hiyo ndio inaekangwa sasa ndio iko at the top of the pyramid, of which we sympathize. However, this psychological, kuangaliwa vibaya, money, catcalling, kuitishwa money,
bullying,
control, bullying, that is also a form of violence. And I think now as a society, we need now to sort of broaden the scope and say, it is bad to call her bad names. It's bad to tell me I'm fat even if I am. Because it is taking away my psychology and affecting my self-esteem in that relationship. Because tunadhaningi the worst ni kupigwa black eye, vitu kaizo. Yes, is the worst, but violence in itself inakuanga very broad, including psychological violence. Like for example, most women ukiwauliza, ikifika 9 p.m, they usually say that, siwezi kwenda kwa public transport. So they'll take maybe private transport. What is this that women fear so much in public transport at night? It tells you that you already anticipate that there could be danger.
Okay.
So broadly, we ought to introspect our cultures where we come from. The fact that you've been told you are the head of the family, the next thing you'll be told is that lazima, the other day I was listening to some guys talking and I was so shocked. They said that sometimes as a man you have to cause trouble for nothing so that people can remember you are there. Like as a man, sometimes when you're given food, refuse. Not because of anything, to show. These things that they have been inculcated in our society, they are passed on for generations. Tomorrow people will ask, what can a woman tell you? Nani amevaa trouser kwa hiyo home? And these stories now, they come as jokes until they become a truth. Because even culture and beliefs and way of life, it starts like that. It's passed from, they are not written. There are nuances, they are passed from this one to this one. So your woman, ame decide yeye ndio hakuwezi kuwa na wanaume wawili kwa nyumba. So then it becomes a new mission to control and to put you in your place.
I still want us to examine the role of technology in this kind of situation we're looking at, because technology is now where relationships begin. Previously, where it had to be a physical interaction, which you could not even hide from the rest of the members of your family, probably because people would know she or he was last seen with this person. If you have a younger sibling, they would know, tumemwacha pale kwa mama nani akiongea na nani. But this time around with technology, there's so much secrecy. You can actually have a life that no one else in your circle knows, yet you have a full life online with people who no one has ever met, including yourself. Don't you think that probably, and we're talking now about the younger generation, that there could be to some extent a misuse of some of the platforms that we have online that could actually leave so many people vulnerable to this kind of criminal activity or violence?
Technology is good, but it is also bad. And it is especially bad to the younger generation. You have seen even the lady, is it Waini? Is it Rita?
Waini.
She met, she met the killers through technology. There is technology generated violence, which is what is causing, all these deaths and things like that. And that's what we're saying. And especially if you look at Instagram, is the most misused, especially among children. These young people, children who are not, above 18, they use a lot of Instagram. And parents have, I think we as parents have actually also, and TikTok, Instagram, TikTok, and it has also, we have kind of left our younger generation. We never care. What are they watching? I mean, schools have closed. Our children are
as long
busy.
As long as she's in the house,
you think now she's safe. Than going out there and meeting boys and things like that and whatever. But let me tell you, there is violence in technology. And this is what we want to address. And that's why one just started by saying, also violence technology-generated violence on women with disabilities, on women in politics, on young children, things like that. We must regulate how this technology is used. It is only through that we are going to ensure that, we are controlling. And I can tell you, Fred, for me, it is also a very good step that the president's advisor is basically taking upon, this responsibility of talking about this violence that is happening. It has been a bit quiet. Women's movement have come up. Now she has come up. That shows that the president, it has finally reached the president. Now the president is beginning to think, what are women talking about? And one of it is this technology-generated violence that we are talking about. This is what is causing our girls, quickly, they're able to quickly, at the switch of her phone, be able to meet. Schools had been closed. These days, children are very clever. They just take the phones and they have their own groups of whatever. This is my schoolmate, these are my schoolmates, these are my whatever mates, these are my whatever mates. And parents are relaxed there, thinking that, they're discussing classwork. But they're talking, what are they talking about? We also have a responsibility as parents to monitor our children. Okay. See what they're talking about. Go through their phones from A to Z. Which sites have they visited? Where are they meeting? You see, most of these killings are young people, young girls who are in university and colleges. How are they meeting these foreigners, Nigerians, and people like that? So the issue of security is a responsibility of not only the country. It is not the responsibility of the president or the Kindiki. It is a responsibility of everybody. It begins from home. And children must feel safe from home.
Now that you're looking at a difference between generations, a generation that has grown up mostly without technology, and now a young generation that is almost entirely dependent on technology. Do you think that could be contributing to this problem? You're fairly young. I'm sure probably you've engaged in online dating. And if at all you have older siblings or parents, they may not understand that concept at all. And once you're in the house, they feel you're safe. Yet you're already on a date somewhere. Yeah. Do you think that this gap between the generations has created so much room that most of the people in authority do not understand what goes on online? And even trying to create restrictions or trying to create a safer online space, because we're not seeing anytime soon that we're going to get rid of online dating. It is something that we have to live with. Yet it appears that it's so unregulated, giving so much room for abuse. Do you think it's because of a generational gap, that probably once you get older, someone like you will understand exactly what online dating is, and so probably if at all you get children, you'll understand what goes on with them?
Yeah. Fred, I'm very young. I'm not fairly old.
Okay, you're young.
Yes, of course, the difference in generation brings up a challenge. And to be honest, even for us, when new apps come up, there's also that hesitancy of trying to learn a new app, and then after a while you jump onto the bandwagon and also adapt that application. But it's the way Mheshimiwa just said, it's our mandate. You have to really follow up on what your siblings are doing, your children are doing, what are they doing, and how they're engaging online. Even for us as a country, we have to explore and look at where the younger generation is going and what instrument applications they're interacting with. The other day we had Mheshimiwa KJ, who's the chairman of the ICT Communications Committee. They had a debate about TikTok and what is going on TikTok, because we had seen increase in a lot of sexual content and behavior around that, and which I really encourage. That's where we need to go. We have to make it a business where young people are, where are they engaging, what hazard exists in such spaces, and how we can be able to eliminate or control or extinguish such hazards. So it's for us to always be on toes. We can't sleep. And Kenya is largely a youthful population, so there are a future and our today.
But what does that tell you about our society? That we have all these platforms online, but a lot of the content that the young generation are trying to generate is a lot of sexual content. Both the boys and girls. It's not just one-sided. We seem to be abusing technology more, and that is leaving us vulnerable.
Lakini lakini to say that it is sexual content that is
Or
produced.
sexualized content, not
Well, it depends on who you follow. You see, the issue of social media, it is, you see, the beauty of social media is that you start on a clean slate, uko zero. Then you decide where you want to follow. For example, for me, when I open my TikTok, there's some sort of algorithm. I see mostly politicians, media, and young people who do beauty content, because those are the ones I've followed. The issue that had been brought about to do TikTok, sexualized, it could have been a person who had looked at it that way, but it could not be the only thing. I think for me, young people in this country, sometimes they are also generalized too much. I've seen a lot of young people doing trade in social media. I've seen people forming online friendships where we have Zoom calls and Twitter calls. We have a WhatsApp group where young women in politics, all of us are in a WhatsApp group, including my two friends here, where we share opportunities for media, and that's how we are somehow here. So the young people in Kenya are also not jokers too much. They are very serious. We are worried about our future. People our age have families and young families. Are there people who make sexual content online? Yes. Is that the main content? Not necessarily. I want to believe that young people are fairly serious. They follow politics. They hold their leaders to account. But you know, but what you're asking is that where we are headed as a society? I feel like it is a high time for us to have a technological hygiene, behavior hygiene. You know, I remember the other time Archbishop Moheria talked about political hygiene. You also need online hygiene, restraint. You don't have to say the first thing that comes to your head. You don't have to, when you differ, let us differ in principle and in ideologies. Let us not differ in terms of insulting people who are women. Mm-hmm. We have seen even cases of, it is actually legislated in the UK, it's called revenge porn, whereby someone shares your intimate photos online to punish you.
Yeah. Yes.
So I feel like this presents a lot of opportunity for legislation. Okay. So that now these people who are in government, they should also be as fast in their thinking, like technology, the way it's moving. For example, right now, there's a feature on the internet. If I have a photo of you, I can use the photo to search more. It will reverse search, where it will now take your photo and then find your information. So I call upon our leaders, our politicians, don't condemn technology too fast. Get young people in those government offices. If it's the Ministry of ICT, it's fine. You can have people who are fairly older. We don't say that they're bad, but I'm thinking that we need to have very young, tech-savvy
So you agree
students.
It's a generational issue that probably those people in places of authority don't understand technology well enough. Because
no doubt,
we're
yes.
talking about technology because it has been cited as part of the problem for this crime. And as we come to the end of this discussion, I'd like you to, because we're looking for a solution. I know you've talked about the possibility of legislation, but there are people maybe you may feel can do better, including the young generation, including the different genders. And what do you think will be part of, because it is a societal problem, and we can only do so much by condemning crime and complaining. But we need to move to the next step and say, this is what you're calling upon people to do this. Denita, let's start with you.
Fred, I started by saying, for me, I want to really applaud the President's advice on women's rights. For me, that is a higher office. And the fact that she has taken up this matter is very commendable. What I want to probably see, because you see, we are seeing that this femicide or men killing women is not just happening in Nairobi. It is happening at the grassroots level. We need to ensure that even with those women in our counties and grassroots level and villages are safe. We must ensure that we have the police on board, the media, you people, you must be on board. You must change the way you report intimate partner violence, rape, and it's not just a crime of passion. That one I will not even talk about. It's not a crime of passion. Murder is murder. Change how we report. The police must be very, very keen on how they talk about issues of women facing danger. Now, this office, because we have many women's organizations now looking around issues of this matter, and I really would wish that the office of the advice of the president, or the president apart from just declaring this issue a national disaster, let the office of the president take keen interest in working with the county governments. Because this violence is happening even at county level. This is not just a national level here happening in Nairobi and Thika and Kiambu. It is happening right in Migori, right in Homa Bay, right in Turkana. How can the office of the advisor move to county levels and really spread itself? I mean, the government has mechanisms, districts, whatever. Let it connect with the district social service and district gender and district children, things like that, so that we feel the presence of this office at the community level. In the US, where I have been able to live and work and study, we have what we are calling the feminist watch something. They have something that is happening there. And this is what, for us, we want to see going down. So that in each county, we are having, as much as we still have district social services and things like that, and gender, we want to hear the office felt at the county level. Every county must have, we must look at how then do we, this office of the advice of the president must be able to report even to parliament. It must have a mechanism through which, in Rwanda they do that. In Rwanda, where I have been able to go and study how they do, they are able to report issues of femicide to parliament on the floor of the house. So if this government is very serious around issues of women's empowerment, how can we make sure that we have mechanisms that collect data from the grassroots level and come and report? And then we say, what are the trends? What is the government doing? This office of advisor, plus the Ministry of Gender, plus so many other actors. There's so many other actors, you know, interior and things like that. How do we put all our efforts together as a very serious multi-stakeholder, whatever, what do we call it, thing? We must develop that one. That is the framework we have to develop in this country. We must address issue of femicide on its own. Because if we say we are looking at issues of gender-based violence, we never look at those kind of issues. You see what we are talking about? So we are trying to think widely. How do we report this matter to Parliament? How do we follow up on monitoring, clear monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that really report on these issues? What are the issues that we need to address? For me, that is what I have to say. And I'm happy. This is a matter that it seems like the president is taking up this matter. Now, we need to support the president to ensure that now every county takes care of the women in those counties.
Okay, thank you. Denita Wanjiku.
For me, I'll begin by saying protect women, believe women, and stop killing women. We have to do those things. As a feminist, I am really invested in the work that I do, and among the things that I do is working on my dissertation for my master's level. And among it, I was looking at communication strategies that are looking towards ending femicide in Kenya. And let me tell you the kind of hecticness that I went through from the National Police just to get the data of the actual data for the number of homicides that happen in Kenya. And for me, first of all, it took 3 months just to be given that data. And I understand procedure, but why did it have to take that long? Number two, when I got the data, there's no femicide case listed as its own. It's just femicide. It's just homicide. But I want to, my research is towards femicide itself, so we have to have isolated femicide data within the police, because it's not including femicide is some sort of structural violence, if I could say. I will also encourage the president to declare this as a national emergency. And we would like to see money being poured into this as well, so that we can be able to have community initiatives, even at grassroots level, where we see people now speaking about protecting women. Because again, from my question earlier, where are men? Why aren't they doing what they were created for, their mandate in protecting women? So we want to see that conversation even from grassroots level, so that we can challenge the cultural norms that, like even Wanja had mentioned. And above all, we would like to have a sexual offender registry, and for it to be public, so that if you've DM'd me on Instagram, you want to meet me up, I can go on that registry and look up your name. are you somebody harmful? Because, you know, it's not written here. For me, I come with the hope that you won't kill me, you won't harm me. I'm here to have a good time with you, meet you, maybe we have a future. You see, explore opportunities with you. So if we can have a registry that is even actually a sexual offenders registry that's even for public, women can have a database that they're able to really look into. And so that women were able to really report, and other women can learn from other women. If I had a bad engagement with this person, high chances is that I will also do so. I keep away.
Maybe finally tu venye umesema, kwanza tu, as Mheshimiwa said, make noise, break the silence. Most of these things happen because of normalizing na watu kunyamaza. Let us introspect our culture. The fact that ukisikia hizo vitu za violence zinaendelea even in our neighborhoods, unasema hey, mambo ya watu wanajifunikanga kwa one blanket, usikaingilie, hii ni mambo ya familia. Let us change our attitudes every day. Number 3, our police, these issues of violence, wa mama, if it is not in the curriculum of police, mali wanatrainiangwa, it should be put there so that they can, sometimes huwa wanatraumatize watu wenye wameumia. Unaenda, you have to explain, nilipigwa, tena una explain kwa the next one. Let us have these issues of violence even in the police curriculum, because they are the first interaction with the justice system. Something else is just, we need to invest in the country with safe houses, safe shelters, also places, like, let's say for example, I am stranded in Kiambu Road because of a bad situation at night. Where is the nearest safe houses and safe shelters and Safeway homes where I can go? Number 5 is that owners of technology, owners of social media platforms, the big tech, they also need to be held to account. If there is violence online, must be a way of reporting so that it can be removed immediately. Repeat offenders even online can be banned so that they don't perpetrate violence. But most importantly, as a country, as a people, we just owe not to treat women. We need to change our psychology, not to treat women and girls as lesser. Some of these things really are based on culture. Unasikia ati alizaa wasichana watupu, bwana amemwacha juu alikutafuta boys akakosa. Unajua those things, if you really listen, nika unasema kama hauna mtoto boy nika una watoto somehow. So our culture, where we come from, that is what inaendeleanga tu hivi, ina degenerate into violence, ina degenerate into treating women badly. So I feel like all of us should constantly check, update our software in the head. We should constantly train ourselves, but also just to thank TV47, the very fact that we're having this conversation, the fact that media may report, we can see newspaper cuttings, it is a step in the right direction, because the media has a way of bringing a topic to the fore and making it to be an important conversation.
And I was hoping you'd mention something about legislation, because you had started on
legislation. Laws zetu, they have to really go with the times. Kama ni law ya technology, if it's the law of monitoring our repeat offenders, if it's the way of using technology in legislation, my urge is that we need to have government officials who are ahead of the curve. You cannot come and think that unasema ati shida yenu ni social media. No, have your people, your staff who are so technology savvy that they can be ahead of the curve. In any case, the government has the best employees who are well trained. It has the best access to everything. It has all the rights, including our taxes. So my urge is that legislation should be ahead of the curve. We need to legislate the new trends that are coming up, as Mheshimiwa said. But most importantly, let us not victim blame.
But we have enough laws. We have enough laws in this country. We cannot say we don't have laws. GBV laws are many. Maybe what we need also is to see how do we review these laws. How do we review? Maybe that is
the laws that govern the use of technology.
Use of technology, yes, and generally violence. Let's say that the sexual offences. Maybe we need to relook at the Sexual Offences Act.
Amend it.
Amend it, because now we need to even bring in the issue. We need to castrate this man. Let me tell you. Sometimes tougher times call for tougher laws, isn't it? Issues, Let us even look at the Sexual Offences Act and say, how then can we amend to have a castration? We have to have a clause there that we must say any man who is found defiling a child or murdering or whatever, this thing you're calling crime of passion, they must be castrated. Wow. We must amend. You know, sometimes these are things that we need to do.
It is definitely a serious conversation.
Yeah, punitive measures.
The hashtag is stop killing women. That is what we are saying.
Yeah, and also, Fred, you know, statistics have also shown that most women are actually harmed by people who are known to them. Correct?
Yes.
So it's not that it's strangers per se.
No.
There could be those isolated cases, but sana sana tu ni mtu anamjua, intimate partner violence. So we also now need to start asking, is the danger really closer? Tusiekele technology sana. It is at home. It is people well known to them. It is these boyfriends. So there are real issues, but yeah.
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much, Wanja Maina, National Chairperson, Jubilee Party, PWD's League. Denita Gatti, Gender, Women's Rights and Disability Advocate, and Wanjiku Thega, Gender Justice and Political Activist, for helping us discuss this very delicate matter, but a matter that is of national concern, and yes, cases of women being killed. Today we do expect the Presidential Advisor on Women Affairs, on gender matters as well, to address this matter officially by issuing a statement to the media, and TV47 will be there